Good afternoon, good morning. This is Mark Johnson from Loyalty 360. Hope everyone's happy, safe, and well. Welcome you back to another edition of Loyalty Live. In this series, we talk to the leaders in customer channel and brand loyalty about the technology trends and, most importantly, the best practices that they are seeing that impacts a brand's ability to drive unique experiences, engagement, and most importantly, customer loyalty. Today, we had the pleasure of speaking with Tim Glomb again. A good friend of mine. He's the Vice President of Content and Data at Cheetah Digital. And today we're going to talk a little bit about personalization. So Tim, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Mark. Good to connect with you guys again.
Absolutely. Great to always talk with you. You guys seem to be on the cutting edge with regard to some of the new practices and some of the things that we're seeing in personalization. So definitely looking forward to this discussion.
Great.
First off, we like to start off with a fun fact. Can you tell us a little about yourself, your role with the company, your background, and maybe a fun fact about Tim as well?
Yeah, sure. I am a brand marketer at heart. I've been in the entertainment industry since, forever. Back in the music days in the 90s, touring the globe with bands like Motley Crue and managing a band Everclear, and then moved into TV, produced the Jackass Guys, a ton of content there. Moved on to run the television network HGNet and rebranded to Access TV for Mark Cuban. So I guess, at heart, I'm an entertainment guy. Maybe people didn't understand. So anybody who's listening, I'm hoping you hear the answers today and the questions from a point of empathy. I've been on your seat. I've been a brand marketer. I've used SaaS. I've bought SaaS. Now I'm on the other side at Cheetah Digital to help tell our client success stories. So hopefully there's a little bit of empathy in my answers today.
Absolutely. The passion is one thing that really comes out when speaking with you. I mean, you exude passion with regard to, understanding some of these challenges that marketers are having and how you can make their kind of processes more relatable. So I think anyone that has your passion always has some great insight to share for sure.
Cool. Appreciate that.
So topic is personalization. What does personalization mean to your organization? And what do you communicate with your clients, around this idea of personalization, getting the right offer, the right, it's not even segmentation, it's really true personalizations. What does that mean to you and your organization?
Yeah, you just mentioned it. That, when conversations start around personalization, usually people go down this path of segments, right, and groups of people. But truly, personalization is at the one-to-one level, right? And again, if I put my brand marketer hat on, which was, I've only been at Cheetah for a year, those were the problems I was trying to solve, a one-to-one level. And it's possible. And I think the market of brand marketers out there still don't understand that. They don't understand that you can and should be communicating at a one-to-one level. If you're not doing one-to-one communication, right channel, right message, right content, right offer, then you are not personalizing. A name in a subject line or a name in an email or an offer is not personalization. It's truly matching the psychographic needs and wants. So that's where we should live today in 2020, in my opinion.
Okay. There's obviously the idea around segmentation. Segmentation's been around for a while. The more data you have, in theory, and the ability to, make it have just different attributes so you understand these different segments. How does segmentation power personalization? It's part of that, but how do you get to truly using segmentation and personalization and into that one-to-one opportunity that you mentioned?
Yeah, again, going back to the segments are great for brand marketers when you start to plan campaigns or how you're going to market or what you want to offer to consumers. You have to start with segments, right? You can't talk if you have 1 million people in your database for round numbers. You can't say, okay, what's our plan? What are our 1 million plans for those 1 million people we're trying to reach? So you have to start with segmentation. That's good for planning. It's kind of good at looking at metrics and groups. But again, it's not a differentiator. Remember that. As a brand or an entity trying to engage with customers at some level, segmentation is not a differentiator. Anybody can do it these days. That's why it's such an easy thing to say, like, oh, let's segment some audience. So I think, people need to go beyond segmentation. They need to understand, what data do I need? What data do I need to store? What data do I need to collect so that I can truly go out and communicate on a one-to-one level? So personalization is good for planning, right?
Yep.
Maybe those 18 to 34, but you really got to get down to that granular level as fast as possible.
Absolutely. And I think you mentioned it, you brought something up that's really important, is that the data, the amount of data you need to get to true personalization is not necessarily as much as some people profess, right? And I think that creates a lot of confusion on the brand side. Is when you have these disparate systems you have running internally, they're always sold that you need 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 data sets, but actually you don't need that. And the level of complexity that is sold sometimes, not what you guys sell and kind of bring to the market, but it creates some confusion in the ability to get to personalization. Do you see that as a challenge?
I do. And you're right. Look, we came out of the age maybe a decade ago where big data was the big thing, right? Everybody wanted big data. It's like, why? What's it doing for you? Are you looking at big data from a lag metrics perspective of things that happened in the past? Well, what's big data going to do for you? Think about the lead measures. And you're right, segmentation, personalization. Some people get overwhelmed with, oh my gosh, we can't collect all this data. Start simple. You get their name, great. All right. What are you going on beyond that? What aligns to your product and service that you could say, if I could get this answer from consumers, if I got this 1, 2, or 3 questions answered from every consumer, how would that allow me to make their experience better, right? And the analogy I use is, look, if you're going to invite a new neighbor over for dinner and you say, hey, do you love spaghetti? We'd love to have you over for dinner. And they say, no, we actually don't like spaghetti. And then you invite them to a spaghetti dinner, like that would be a bad experience. Start really simple. What is your product and offering around? What are your products and services around? Ask questions that are pertinent to that. Start with 3 questions and personalize based on those answers. You don't need giant data. It's better if you can, and that's what we do for our enterprise global brands, like airlines pulling in weather data. They know when you're going to land, if your plane's on time, things like that. But start small. Don't let it overwhelm you.
And it's starting small. I think is incrementality is easier then, right? If you can start with 2 or 3 data sets, and you can truly, even if you're just doing name, email, right, and then you can add something, add incrementally versus trying to boil the ocean and do everything. I mean, it leads to measurement opportunities. One thing, go ahead.
No, absolutely, you're totally right. But go ahead. Let's go down your path.
So one of the challenges we see in kind of from brands, the members of Loyalty 360, it's the challenge of listening to the customers, and it's kind of a new paradigm, right? So marketing used to be very creatively based, some things you've done, but now it's kind of a mix of left and right brain, right? So you have to have the analytical skills, you have the ability to do some sort of segmentation or regression analysis, but it adds complexity. But one of the things we still continue to see is brands have a challenge listening to and understanding their customers, right? They may hear what the customers say, but that's passive. That's not truly listening. Do you see that as a challenge, or you see that as something that is changing?
I do. I see a lot of brands get wrapped up into behavior and inferred data and assume that the customer meant to do something or has some intent. So inference based on behavior and tracking, oh, they clicked this thing, so they must love that thing. No, maybe they just have big thumbs and your email was really small or your offer was small. So, inference is bad. We live in a day and age where we can get clean data, we can get actual psychographic information and true intent data from consumers. So we should be listening to that. So my suggestion is don't get wrapped up in inference and behavioral data and make assumptions for someone. I wouldn't assume that my wife wants to go to dinner with my best friend. I would ask her first before I committed us to it. So give your customers the same, courtesy. Ask them and use that data. Don't get wrapped up in inference and behavior, assuming that somebody wants something that, in the future.
Okay, absolutely. When you look at demographic segmentation, what level or, how do various segmentations and demographic segmentations drive personalization?
Yeah, again, I think anything that's segmented, if we're using the word segment, it's going to be a group of something, right? Whether I'm segmenting males or females or, other things I know about them, we are already making the assumption that we're aggregating people into a lump, right? If we're talking about people. So demographics are important because they do, look, marketers are smart, they're educated, their experience. They know that males react differently than females. They know that 18-year-olds react differently than, 80-year-olds. So it is a great base layer for planning. Again, when I was working inside of global brands, you had to plan, you had to create your campaigns, you had to figure out what your go-to-market strategy was. So use the demographics of what you have to make assumptions, but again, get that feedback loop baked into your strategy. Absolutely. It has to be part of the architecture. So you have to have allowances to let people be part of the process.
Absolutely. And one of the things you just mentioned is kind of measurement, right? So when you look at and you begin to track and measure kind of the causal relationship between personalization and increased consumer engagement purchasing, that's a big challenge for most marketers. What piece of advice can you offer in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, look, that is a very difficult thing to do. And that, quite frankly, is why Cheetah Digital exists, right? To make it easier to say, well, we have a lot of data, we have a lot of insights, we have a lot of behavior, we have a lot of actions. How do we make sense of this all, right? We're not all data scientists. And that's exactly what Cheetah is here to do. And there are other platforms out there that make all of that data simple to digest. So that's what we hope to do at Cheetah Digital. We know our clients give us feedback and say, wow, I can take complex data sets and look and find the needle in the haystack or the anomaly or the trends. So number one, if you don't have a tool that's making your life easy, or you're using 3 or 4 different tools to kind of stitch together your personalization path and your metrics of A, B, C testing, what's working, then you have the wrong tools, in my opinion. So one, look to your tools. 2, look at the key metrics. Again, don't look at the same metrics your competitors are probably looking at. What's unique to you? What unique data set are you getting from consumers? Anyone can look at transaction and say, this channel is doing X. That's not a differentiator. What differentiates your campaign and your metrics from your competitors? Find that, unique anomaly and grow on those metrics.
Absolutely. And one of the challenges that we see from our clients, especially as we just completed our first industry report, which will be out later this week, a little plug there, but having the ability to do personalized offers and a level of personalization kind of varies brand to brand. You talked about disparate technologies. Some people are wanting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It makes it more difficult, and they may not even have the teams internally that can employ the technology effectively to drive personalization efforts. How do you help brand marketers in that area?
Yeah, look, we have a lot of clients. There's a great case study on the Cheetah Digital website. I think that we've touched on this in some other events with Loyalty 360. The technology makes it easier. We have one client who is crushing it globally and has 4 people on a marketing team for 7 brands, Pure Archery Group. Our technology, consolidates all this so that you don't have a bunch of different people having to work a bunch of different levers and tools across a bunch of different platforms. So if you can consolidate, but also focus on the things that are going to actually effectuate change. Don't get wrapped up in constantly looking at metrics in the past. If you can't create a strategy that says, how are we going to take and learn from that and change the future, right? Lead measures versus lag metrics in the past. And that at Cheetah, again, is what we're trying to do. We're making software that you don't have to be a data scientist or an IT guru to actually understand, and activate. So that's our platform. But I think it goes back to the platforms that aggregate this. If you're having frustration, kick the tires on other vendors.
Absolutely.
Better platforms out there.
The relevance of communication obviously is very important as well. Increasing significance of the marketing message, the content of the message, the timing, the channel through various social and maybe even direct mail. That's a big challenge as well. Do you find that one of these factors is more impactful, and how can brands optimize this mix to produce truly relevant communications and automate that personalization effort at scale, most importantly?
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 things here. Number one, you have to have a zero-party data strategy, right? Richard Jones, our CMO, helped coin that term with Forrester a couple of years ago, and now it's ubiquitous. I'm getting Google alerts on it all the time. If you don't understand zero-party data, you have to dig in. This is the psychographic data, because that's what's going to help you scale those one-to-one personalized messages. So learn how to collect it. And it's very, very simple. You can use, we have tools. There's tools out there. I mean, look, I'll name drop them. They're Typeform. They're MailChimp SurveyMonkey. Like, I don't know what you're using, but go start to ask people questions, store that data, and plug it into your personalization roadmap. 2, have it always on. Don't just ask once and then say, all right, this is the data. Tim told me he loves spaghetti, so we're always going to give him a coupon for spaghetti meals. No, continually always be on. And then 3, make sure your platforms, whether you're using multiples to stitch together your communications, your loyalty, your email, your mobile, consolidate that. Make it simple. Make that data slippery, right? We like slippery content. It can be consumed by the consumer anywhere. Slippery data. How does that data that you're collecting, the important data, individual level data, how is that, being broadcast and used and acted on all your platforms when you're reaching consumers? If you nail those three things, you've got a recipe for success.
Absolutely. We talked about this a little bit earlier, kind of the behavior of the individuals and looking at the various demographics and kind of as that becomes more dynamic, there's more reciprocity, the better technology platforms as part of that. Is there a shift to personalization based on, transactional segments or cohorts versus the more traditional segments? What's that kind of that next iteration as you become more personalized?
Yeah, well, I think what's really interesting, if you look at a company like End Pizza, which is an East Coast pizza chain, a walk the line pizza chain, they started with cohorts and they started with segments. They started with transactions. Who spends $20 versus $5? Who spends 3 times a week versus 3 times a month? But really, when you add this layer of personalization in, your planning starts to change, and you can create dynamic customer journeys. So instead of saying, okay, we're going to send this offer or this reward or whatever it might be, when they hit this threshold, X amount of transactions per month or X amount of dollars per month, you'll really start to understand, wow, we can create triggers and automations and rewards and reach back content, whatever it might be, based on an individual need. So that's where we're seeing the market go. It's no longer, oh, we have 10 cohorts and 10 segments, and when they reach this threshold, they'll get one of the 10 campaigns. We're seeing really, really small companies, and Pizza is not giant, but they're also, 26 locations or so on the Eastern Seaboard. They are truly looking at transactions and data at an individual level and customizing offers in real time for them. And it's smashing it for them. So it's possible. The only thing I can say is it's possible. Don't be deterred and say, we don't have the resources or the platforms or this and that. They do exist, and small companies are doing really, really big things.
Absolutely. You look at the behavioral trends, they're ebbing and flowing. People want the increased personalization. They want to know that the brand knows them in a kind of a very deep and meaningful manner. How does the right technology mix give marketers the agility and the ability to execute personalization that is relevant and engaging with respect to the current environment, but most importantly, vis-a-vis their potential competitors?
Yeah. So again, it goes back to that zero-party data. If you have that, then you can personalize. And I'll give you a stat that we're going to share on a webinar with you guys March 17th at Loyalty 360, where we break down some original research, 5,000 members, 5,000 consumers asked across the globe. And one of the big things was from 2019 to 2020, there's a 33% increase in consumers wanting more personalization. So this is something you have to deal with. But when you talk about, how can they implement this and get real results? Again, I'll look to somebody who's been on Loyalty 360 several times, Andres Sachs at Salon Group, a $13 billion grocer who has 35% market share in Denmark, the largest retailer in Denmark. They added the Cheetah Digital personalization engine with some machine learning and AI on their data. And instantly, they turned it on, a 10 times lift in their grocery loyalty app when personalizing and suggesting the right products and the right offers. A 10 times lift. This is somebody that does $13 billion a year and had a great loyalty program and now gets a 10 times lift. So awesome. Again, find the right technology, get the right strategy, collect the right data. The results are proven. This is not a theory. This is tried and true and happening with brands across the globe right now.
Absolutely. There's a great deal of technology in the market right now. There's rules-based filtering, you have collaborative filtering, you have artificial intelligence, neural networks, machine learning. There's a lot of new technologies and processes that can help marketers. But what should marketers be looking to incorporate into their personalization strategy or looking for in a provider that can help them with their offering?
Yeah, you just rambled off a list that could be, 10 times longer, right? AI, machine learning, like real-time data, batch data, my transactional point of sale data, third-party data, first-party data. Like it's overwhelming. I would say before you start thinking about adding new technology, go master the basics. And the basics, again, I'm a brand marketer, 20 years. I've been 1 year at Cheetah in the SaaS world. Go get your zero-party data. If you figure that out and you have an always online pipeline that's feeding in real consumer psychographic information, great. Get some machine learning, right? Understand that, look at the anomalies, look at the trends, cool, but you don't have to like be completely reliant on AI or machine learning in your platforms. Master those really basics. Then add, as I mentioned earlier, imagine weather data. Like if you're selling airline tickets and you want to get somebody to buy another flight and they're on a flight today and it's going to be delayed and where they land, it's going to be 13 below, probably not a great day to send an offer to, get them to buy a trip to Vail. Maybe a great day to get them to buy an offer to a trip to Honolulu, but think about mastering those basics. Get zero-party data flowing in real time, get your machine learning and AI at a basic level, and make sure you can activate on that before you start throwing more technology for technology's sake. That's what I did. It worked really well. I found Cheetah in that process, and the results were amazing. So,
absolutely. And the last question we have is, how has personalization changed during COVID, and how do you think marketers, consumers, what they've been through, how will that impact or affect personalization going forward?
Yeah, COVID hit everybody hard in a lot of different ways, but specifically to personalization, what I think we found is that everyone was locked to their computers and devices. It was a digital world. You couldn't go out. You couldn't go to brick and mortar and experience brand experiences in store or where you experience them normally. And there were a lot of bad actors flooding digital, meaning from ads, right? There's a lot of third-party tracking ads going out there. And what you feel like, somebody tried to personalize an ad or an experience to you, but you don't remember giving them the data to allow them to do that. So I think everyone being tethered to digital machines really accelerated the knowledge of like, hey, I'm being tracked and people are deducing and inferring things on me. So, hey, brand, politely, like back off. I don't know you. There's some brands I love. I've been a skateboarder my whole life. I'm going to be loyal to that brand no matter what they send me, but I also give them the right and I give them information through their experience platform that I know is coming back. It's giving me better ads, better experiences and offers. So that was a big part of COVID. At the same time, I think it gave a lot of people, it let consumers understand which brands understand me. Everybody's vying, all these brands are vying for my attention, but which ones am I going to gravitate towards? Which ones understand me and give me better experiences? So if any lesson is learned from the COVID and the pandemic, it's be meaningful. And not every consumer needs to be one of your best advocates. Just really, really focus on the ones that love your brand, make that experience best, and get the brick and mortar in-store experience ready. Use the data, collect data now while we're all digital and trapped in a digital world so that when we're all able to communicate and go freely as we want, our in-person experiences will be better and powered by that data.
And that's definitely going to be a consideration. We've seen a lot of our marketers shift from in-store. They've ramped up the kind of digital efforts, and now they're starting to shift back. A lot of the brands are members of Loyalty 360s. That's going to be a big challenge, but as you mentioned, it's a huge opportunity if they can replicate those experiences in a consistent manner and do it with technology and do it seamless and do it in a way that's not creepy. I think that will help increase the personalized offers, in multi-channels.
Absolutely. That real-time feedback from the customer is what you need to be listening to more than anything else. That's my opinion. That's how I built, my experience, my career, and the successes of the brands I was at. If you could get as close as possible to the customer, all the other data you have, the metrics, your advertising, your click rates, all that means nothing. Like you can fix those or make those better as long as you're listening to the customer truly and honestly. Like literally ask yourself right now, are we truly listening to our customers and our audience? And if you're not, like that's what 2021 is all about. You don't have much time. You're probably not going to have a job if you can't get closer to the customer for your brand.
Well, Tim, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. It's always insightful to hear from you. The passion, as I said, kind of exudes from you every time we speak. So looking forward to the webinar coming up next month. And again, thanks for all that you do for the industry. And it was great talking to you.
Definitely. Same, Mark. Good to talk to you again.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And